the first decisions that have been taken by the Taliban are far from being encouraging. The battle, though, this week here at the United Nations will be around the Credentials Committee, and the General Assembly will have to decide who represents the government of Afghanistan. It's an issue that could remain on the back burner for a while, but for now, it is still the representative of the Ghani government. He's still in New York, although I think no member states, not even the United States, recognizes that government as the legitimate government. It seems a little bit absurd. As a former permanent representative yourself for Jordan, how do you see the situation? What would your advice be?
Well, I think there is this outside chance that once it discerns how difficult it is to govern again, and govern perhaps in changed circumstances. Just technologically, Afghanistan today is not where Afghanistan was in 2001. People's access to news is still there. It's not completely cut off. And so governance will be hard. And they may decide at some stage to go for a government of national unity, including elements of the former, or let's say the current Ghani government, depending on how you view the situation. Yes, you touch on a very important point. I've seen it time and again. You would have a coup, for example, in a given country. Everyone would condemn it, and then a year later, the representative of the coup leader becomes credentialed, and the coup leader is the president of the country and is invited to come to the General Assembly. So we've seen it time and again. Yeah, what is seen to be a disgraceful act of, usurpation of power sort of becomes normalized over time. So one learns never to say never. But I think the point is that there is leverage to be exercised. How is that leverage being exercised? And that the Taliban will need the support of the international, especially given, if it holds true to its stated commitment not to depend on a heroin economy, but to depend on something else. Partly in the beginning, of course, on the humanitarian support given to it, and then trying to create an economy that's viable for the country. It will need to give somewhere, and so that's where the discussion will be met.
And of course, you represented your country in the General Assembly. You know the Security Council extremely well as well, and all of its proceedings. Conventional wisdom is that recognition of the Taliban would be used as leverage to soften their policies, to incentivize them, to change their approach. Is this the right way of looking at things, do you think? Wouldn't a recognition of the new authorities in Kabul also add some kind of important leverage on them to ensure that when they do take up their seat in all of these important forums, that they are held accountable for the policies that they've been implementing?
Yes, again, I don't know the details, but if I were negotiating, I would say the price for them would have to be, intensive, comprehensive human rights monitoring, reporting, access by investigators, and all of that. They need to be open. They need to be an open country to that. And then perhaps, now some may say, well, there are many countries who are members of the UN who are highly repressive, and you don't have that, and are you not imposing a sort of different standard? I think, well, given the risk of severe repression, I don't think it's a tall order, and all of that can be sort of changed over time. But I think a sort of blank entry and a ticket to sort of to basically waltz into the UN without any changes to the way in which they're willing to govern would be a very difficult thing to imagine, though.